Bibliophiles of the internet, today I'm here to share my favorite books of 2022. As you all know by now, this list is a labor of love. I've put so much thought and work into it. I'm a maximalist when it comes to these things. I don't round off my favorites. These are all of my favorite books from last year, listed in the order I read them from the first day to the last day of 2022. As long as I personally read something for the first time in 2022, it is fair game. Doesn't matter if it came out last century or if it hasn't been published yet. If I personally consumed that content sometime in 2022 and I loved it, then it counts. If you're new here, what I tend to do for these videos is name the book, the author, and give a little sort of reflection on what the story brought into my life, what I've taken away from it. You'll catch on as we go. The last housekeeping thing is to say that as of filming this video, the HarperCollins Union is still on strike. Their Instagram is a great landing page for finding out more information about that, which will be included down below. I have looked up every single title on this list, and for any HarperCollins titles, I will name them, but I will not be giving testimonials for those books. But to be clear, even though I'm not saying anything about those books, I am 100% recommending them. Please support the authors, buy the books, borrow the books, donate copies if you can, share them with your friends, add them online, all of that good stuff. It sucks. It's been an inconvenience for those of us who want to share about some really amazing books, especially those by marginalized authors, but I imagine it's been even more inconvenient for the union workers to not be able to work. So yeah, maybe someone will be watching this at the end of 2023 or even many years down the road and think it's weird for us reviewers to be excluding those titles at this time, but that's just how 2022 has shaken out, so at least it's an accurate reflection in that sense. With all of that said, let's talk about the best books I read in 2022. Starting off with Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. Because one of the only things we can be sure of in life is that our past effectively informs and shapes our futures. When all is said and done, our true legacies are the choices we make. The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. Because just as we don't actually have to justify or measure the pain we experience in our lives based on anyone else's metric, we also don't have to earn happiness for ourselves. Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. Because even in our mistakes, our imperfections, and our uncertainty, we are enough, right now, in this moment, and even our most imperfect selves are deserving of love. The Silvered Serpents and the Bronze Beasts by Roshni Chokshi. Because the greatest mark we'll ever make on the world is the fact that we matter to the people we love the most. A Soft Place to Land by Janae Marks. Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. Because healing doesn't come free. Healing ourselves, others, or even generational wounds requires a tremendous amount of labor that shouldn't be erased just because it leads to a desirable outcome. The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. Because it's actually powerful to allow ourselves to be imperfect, especially when reckoning with the fact that we are all products of a ruthless, violent, and deeply imperfect world to begin with. So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. Because following the path perfectly doesn't mean that everything is gonna be perfect or make perfect sense, and we can fight that uncertainty or we can welcome it. Lake Lore by A.M. McLemore. Because we absolutely can find power and identity in the very things that we've been taught to feel ashamed of or even hide. Our beauty is in our fullness, and the truest parts of ourselves can never truly be hidden in the first place. Ellen Outside the Lines by A.J. Sass. Just because something's challenging doesn't mean it can't be overcome or navigated, and we all deserve to be surrounded by people who empower us to meet those challenges with kindness, grace, and patience. A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. Because it's one thing to imagine or wish for the futures we deserve, but we can also be working to create those futures and those opportunities for our own happiness. Heartstopper, Volumes 3 and 4 by Alice Oseman. Because love is not a finish line to cross or the period at the end of a sentence, but rather the beginning of an ongoing conversation. Beauty and the Besharam by Lily Vale. Because it's actually really amazing to know exactly who you are, what you're worth, and what you want, and being able to pursue those things uncompromisingly is an admirable trait, not a shameful one. The Fae Keeper by H.E. Edgman. Andar and Santi Were Here by Gianni Garzavilla. Because we should all practice not only recognizing and valuing joy when it's actually present in our lives, but also fully experiencing it wherever, whenever, and however we can find it, even and especially if it might be finite. Boys Run the Riot Volume 4 by Gaku Keito, because instead of agonizing over what we might lack, we should embrace the fact that having room to grow actually means we have space enough to welcome in so many beautiful and exciting possibilities. Exodus 23 by Freydis Moon, because there is divinity and holiness in the act of recreating yourself. There's an inherent kind of virtue and power in believing in a version of yourself that doesn't yet exist and making that possibility into reality for yourself. The Sunbear Trials by Aiden Thomas, because community is transformative by definition, and the most disruptive thing we can do, especially in a destructive world that was built to capitalize off our isolation and helplessness, is to actually care about the people around us. It Sounds Like This by Ana Mariano, because when navigating the false dichotomy between just friends and more than friends, it's actually quite powerful to realize that there's nothing just about friendship. The love that exists between friends is valuable, wonderful, and strong enough to change lives. Self-Made Boys by A.M. McLemore, because the continued existence of our hope and joy is not only beautiful but incredibly necessary. When we dream for ourselves, that means we see and believe in a version of ourselves in the future who is deserving of happiness. Ivelisse Explains It All by Andrea Beatriz Arango, because making mistakes, learning how to navigate them, and maybe even hurting the people we care about, including ourselves, can be part of a greater journey in learning how to better love and support each other in the ways we actually need. Making Love with the Land by Joshua Whitehead, because understanding and naming the ways in which our language, our worlds, and even our imaginations have been so violently limited is the only way we can discover how we can possibly grow beyond those limitations. The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, because sometimes we have to willingly step into the darkness and confront those terrifying places within ourselves and the people around us in hopes that it gets us even an inch closer to the light. Night of the Living Rez by Morgan Talty, because sometimes the question isn't how did we get here, but rather what can we do to get out of this place? How can we survive? What is it going to take for us to be able to live? A Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt, because our stories, the stories that matter, don't exist in a vacuum. Everyone and everything that has shaped us has lent their voice in composing the stories and songs of our hearts. The Healer of the Water Monster by Brian Young. If You Still Recognize Me by Cynthia So, because we've all been taught in so many ways that everything beautiful, wonderful, and worth having in life is fragile and will break at our first sign of incompetence or unworthiness. But all of those things are so much stronger and much more abundant than we think. Ordinary Notes by Christina Sharp, because we actually don't have to confine ourselves to the limits of other people's imaginations in order for our lives to be legible or valuable to the people around us. The Thousand Crimes of Mingsu by Tom Lin, because oppression is not a victimless crime. There are consequences for inflicting trauma on other people, and it's not up to us to decide how that pain manifests itself or whether that inevitable reckoning is considered righteous. And finally, It Came from the Closet, edited by Joe Velisi, because a kind of monstrosity, a willingness to destroy what already exists about the world and ourselves, is necessary if there is to be rebirth, vulnerability, and truth in our lives. So those are all my favorite books of 2022. Of course, they're not the only incredible books I read last year, but they definitely stood out to me the most. If hearing about any of these made you want to pick them up, definitely let me know, or feel free to drop a comment down below telling me about your own favorite books. But that is everything I had to share for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.